with more files on UFOs than the Pentagon is willing to admit. Tonight, we're talking about the Silent Night UFO incident. A story that proves even aliens can't resist Christmas lights. And now, here's your host, lover of mysteries, seeker of truth, and the guy who definitely puts that glowing up just to see what happens. Oh, stop it. Welcome back. Welcome to a new year, and welcome to the Paranormal Corner, the first official episode of the Paranormal Corner, right here on Rick's Horror Network. If you don't know who I am, you might have followed me on the old Instagram at Rick's Horror, on the TikTok as well, on the... No, you'll never find me on no Facebooks. Because that is for the old... And tonight, we're reviewing something different. We're not reviewing a movie. Well, actually, we're not reviewing per se, but we're talking about, I think, a rather interesting story called The Silent Night UFO Incident. Now, this happened... Well, let's get into it, shall we? Whoops, wrong music. It's been a while. I'm a little wafty. We found it. So, The Silent Night UFO Incident. Welcome. Here we go. Oh, look at this. I got a nice little card ready for you. Round of applause for us. Billy, are you ready for this? I mean, I guess there's no fun facts in this, is there? No fun facts per se. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's fun in here. And all of it is facts, so I guess the entire episode is a fun fact. Alright, okay, you're gonna be a funny guy now. I thought you were gonna take this seriously. Oh no, this is a very serious stuff. Anyway, let's jump right into this bad boy. The Silent Night UFO Incident. This is a story that, well, first and foremost, it is a story that took place in Rendlesham Forest in England, and it's often called Rendlesham Forest Incident or the Silent Night UFO Incident. And the story combines, I think, what has now become, very typical. And by the way, this is interesting that we're talking about this because of all the UFOs and drone stuff that's been happening recently. And I know it sort of goes into this background mode. There's so much to know, there's so much to see, there's so much to hear. We just sort of forget it. And I think that's kind of sad. But anyway, it's a story that combines glowing orbs, military secrets, and what I think is the most fascinating part of the entire endeavor. An encoded message, but it's encoded in binary. And we'll get into that part of the story, but I think it's fascinating. Okay, so here is the setup. Shut up. Whoops, wrong one. It's December 1980. A couple of days after Christmas. By the way, I think it's the 26th of December in 1980. And a U.S. Air Force base in Suffolk, England. By the way, it is an English Air Force base that is currently, or at the time was being used by the United States Air Force, becomes the stage for a UFO sighting so extraordinary, I think it has stumped investigators for over 40 years. And here's the kicker. Isn't it just a case of weird lights in the sky? There's multiple witnesses, a real-time audio recording, which is rare, and a message, as I just mentioned earlier, in binary. And I think that's a whole new layer of mystery to this particular case. And speaking of the case, here are the facts of the case. Okay, so the event happened on December 26th in the year 1980 in the wee bit hours of the morning at the Royal Air Force Woodbridge, again, an airbase in Suffolk, England that was used by the Royal Air Force but was occupied by the English Air Force at the time. There's a security patrolman on duty when suddenly he spots something strange. Pulsating lights descending into Rendlesham Forest. And his first logical thought, of course, maybe it's a plane crash. So they grab their gear and head into the woods. heading into the woods. Now picture this. Pitch dark forest. Your flashlights barely cutting through set dense forest when suddenly glowing lights appear between the trees. Now, they're not static lights either. They're moving and they're pulsating red, orange, and blue, almost like they're, well, alive. As the patrol gets closer, they find something. Let me disappear that music. It's not hitting the right notes here. When the patrol gets closer, they find something that defied explanation at the time and to some folks still does today. One of the witnesses, Sergeant Jim Peniston, described what he saw as a metallic object about the size of a small car. Now, this is interesting considering all the metallic objects, the size of small cars we've been seeing, especially a lot of the stuff in New Jersey, right? Anyway, its surface glowed faintly and etched into its metallic frame were angular symbols. Symbols Jim Peniston later sketched in his notebook. Now, these symbols, well, they weren't random. They looked purposeful, almost like hieroglyphs for a language that no one had ever seen, including Sergeant Peniston. But here's where stuff gets even stranger than it already is. After a few minutes, the object shoots up into the sky at an incredible speed. No sound, no warning, just gone. I think it's what now becomes sort of a staple of what we consider, UFO physics. So just gone, and yet this wasn't the end of the story. Over the next 2 nights, the light continued to return, bringing even more questions, and eventually, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt. Now, this is important, okay, because what we have now here is Halt's investigation. On December 28th, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt led his own team into the forest to see the lights for himself, and he just wasn't relying on memory. No! Something bitch brought himself a tape recorder. Congratulations, Charles Halt, because what became known as Halt's tape, one of the most famous pieces of potentially recorded evidence of somebody investigating an event such as this. Anyways, if you've ever listened to Halt's tape, you know that it's quite eerie, but he calmly describes these glowing orbs moving through the trees, splitting into small lights, and then darting through the sky like they're playing some kind of, well, interstellar game tag. Now, he also recorded elevated levels of radiation at the landing site. That's right. When they used the old Geiger counter, the old, you've never heard of a Geiger counter? Geiger counter. The needle jumped. Not enough to make you glow in the dark, certainly, but definitely not what you'd expect in a quiet forest. And here is the thing. Again, Halt wasn't just some random dude in the middle of a forest making these claims, right? He was the deputy base commander, a man trained to observe and report accurately. This wasn't somebody with everything, this was somebody with everything to lose if this story didn't hold up. But even Halt couldn't explain what happened next. Because now we need to get to what I think is, I'm not saying Halt's investigation wasn't important or interesting, but I do reckon Jim Peniston's notebook is on another level. Yeah, that definitely. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the binary. Definitely talking about the binary. Okay, let's do it. The Notebook, and no, I'm not talking about the 2003 movie featuring Ryan Gosling. Or am I? No. After the encounter, Sergeant Jim Peniston said he experienced something extraordinary when he touched the craft. Touch it. He claimed he received the download of binary code directly into his mind. Let's consider that for a second. Touching something, I'm going to touch this microphone, and suddenly I am imbued with ones and zeros. This is what binary is, by the way. Not familiar with binaries? It's the collection of ones and zeros that, when translated into human language or numbers, gives you a different type of information. Computers use this Well, we use ones and zeros to communicate with computers. Anyway, he touches this thing and suddenly receives this download of binary code directly into his mind, which, by the way, to me, it is completely fascinating. I mean, to have downloaded anything into his mind by touching this craft is interesting as it is, right? Let's just touch the craft and suddenly see images of a far and away star system and a galaxy far, far away, or maybe, spacecraft or something. No, he sees binary, okay, which is interesting. Now, if I may be serious for just a moment. As someone with a background in electrical engineering, that's right. Thank you. Let me tell you, working with binary is no joke. It's precise. You get one wrong bit, either a 1 or a 0 that's out of place, and certainly you've ruined the entire message. I can't even tell you how many times I sat there with the old 11011, 1011, 0111. Was it 101 or 01? And then you got to go back to the beginning. 10111, 0111, 02. No two. There's no two. It's just zeros and ones. See what I mean? You see what I mean? This is what he's doing. And by the way, he recorded 16 pages worth of binary from memory. Now, I'm not the best electrical engineer in the history of mankind. Certainly no debating that, but even as you're copying that from a board, or even if you're looking at it, you have to double, triple, quadruple check those 110111, 0111, 10111, 1101, or was it 11110? It's just, it's mind-boggling. And then after a few minutes, you just kind of rig. But this guy gets 16 pages worth. So again, one wrong bit, just a single 0 or a 1 out of place, and you've ruined the entire message. And yet, when researchers analyzed Pennison's code, it wasn't a random collection of ones and zeros. It contained a message, a phrase that said, exploration of humanity and continuous interplanetary advance. Can you imagine that? Not only was this guy writing these numbers down from memory, it also, when decoded, had a very clear message. It wasn't like something they needed to interpret. This was actually written in plain old English. The luck that this guy had, because had they written this in Spanish, I guess the aliens were in England. I speak English. When they landed in England, he knows very well that they spoke English. Anyway. Here's an even more interesting part of this message. Not that this wasn't interesting enough as it is, exploration of humanity for continuous planetary advance. The binary also pointed to 7 geographic locations. The mystery de pensar. Now these coordinates included the Great Pyramid of Giza, Stonehenge, Sedona, Arizona, among others. But there are also more obscure locations, but certainly more locations that are also very interesting. But the Nazca lines in Peru, Mount Taishan in China, and the Portaraxis in Greece, even the High Brazil, a mythical island west of Ireland, said to appear only once every 7 years. Now, what ties all of these locations together? You must be thinking, right? What about it? What? Well, who cares? Oh, he got some locations. Thank you, Jerry. Ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Seinfeld. Some believe that they align along the global energy grids of ley lines, suggesting perhaps a deliberate pattern. I don't know. Again, all speculated at this point. Anyway, okay. So that's the notebook. Now, was this science or sorcery? Let's look at the science first and foremost, okay? First, there's radiation. Now, the Geiger counter picked up elevated levels of radiation at the landing site, which is not something that you would expect in a quiet forest, right? Was it a residual effect of the craft? I don't know. Then there's also, electromagnetic plasma. Now, some scientists suggest that tectonic stress can release charged particles, creating glowing orbs in the atmosphere. It's a fascinating theory, but it doesn't explain, I think, again, what is the most interesting part of the Silent Night UFO incident. The binary code that points to ancient landmarks. So again, science or something out of this world. Sorcery, perhaps. I don't know. Many theories about this exist. And now, to discuss said theories, it's the one and only Billy the AI. I have theories? Of course you have theories. Of course I have theories. I've got many theories, and welcome to the first exciting episode of many theories, for fun theories with Billy Day. I am your host, Billy Day, and here's theory number 1. It's an alien craft. Let's start with the obvious one. If this was an extraterrestrial craft, the binary message and the coordinates could be a form of communication. No doubt. Maybe they're mapping out sites on Earth that are significant to them, or maybe to us. But here's the question. Why binary? Is it universal, or are they just showing off? They could have used some other base system like base 8, hexadecimal. Why did they choose binary? I gotta tell you, I think it's probably a very effective message of communicating with simpleton beings. No, we're not simpleton beings, but certainly, I don't know. I just spent like 20 minutes saying that it's a difficult thing, but I think maybe I am leaning towards it being a universal form. Numbers should be universal in the universe, right? Yeah, maybe. Okay. Sounds like we got somebody for the alien craft theory. That might be signing up for that one. Okay, here's the next one. This could have been a secret military experiment. Now, some skeptics suggest that the Silent Night UFO incident could have been advanced military tech, maybe even psychological warfare testing. But if that's the case, then why include glowing symbols and again a binary download? If this was a test, and if this was only a test, it was one heck of a weird one, that's for sure. Okay, here's my next theory. A psychological phenomenon. Now, could Tenniston's binary code be a subconscious creation? Maybe his mind was trying to make sense of the encounter and the result was this complex message. But how do you explain the coordinates lining up with real-world locations and then he actually generating a message that makes sense, and he generated a message that makes sense in English, which is the most fascinating thing of all. Have they been studying us? Have they been studying the English and they decided to learn it and they know the English language? Okay. I think if they can understand binary, they can probably figure out English. The question is, if they know English, why not just write the message in English? Why make him translate it? I don't know, it seems like complicated. But anyway, sorry, go on, dude. I'm with ya. Okay. And this is my favorite theory, the ancient connection, okay? What if the coordinates point to humanity's shared history? Ancient sites that were significant to past civilization. Maybe the message was meant to remind us of something we've forgotten. Or maybe even to warn us about something that's to come. And this has been 4 fun theories with Billy the AI. And now back to you, Rick. I like that last one. Yeah, it could definitely be an ancient connection, like those episodes of Ancient Aliens, you know what I mean? Aliens, yes, I do know exactly what you mean. But no, yeah, absolutely right. Those are fun theories indeed. Okay, now, 40 years later, the Rendlesham Forest incident remains, I think, my humble opinion, one of the most compelling UFO cases in history. Again, because of the because of the binary. The binary code adds a layer of complexity that I think is frankly, a lot of people, when you search this stuff online, you can search this stuff online, by the way. When you search this stuff online, a lot of people focus on Jim Penniston's recording. But Penniston came back 2 days after the initial event happened, right? And it's just not as fun or as interesting as having binary code downloaded. Download the binary code directly into your memory. And then having a message translate directly into... I wonder. No. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense in my own brain. Yeah, I just think it's fascinating that they wrote in binary, number one, and then the message directly translated it to something in English, which, by the way, again, coincidentally, they were in England, they spoke English. Could have been translated into a billion different languages. I mean, not a billion different languages, but one of a host of different languages across the world. But thankfully, the aliens were kind enough to write the message in English. Okay, anyway, 40 years later, again, this incident remains one of the most compelling ones because of the messages in binary and because of Hall's memo, okay? The coordinates, again, they're not just random dots on the map. Each location ties back to humanity's history, spirituality, or mythology. The Great Pyramid of Giza and Stonehenge are engineering marvels, which, by the way, we may not know exactly who built them and when. All this stuff is getting turned up on his head. Upside down on his head? Turned on his head? Let's go on. I think you already bought that. Yeah. Just move on. Getting turned upside down on its head. I said just go on. Just finish. Tested that, Billy boy. Anyway, the coordinates are just random dots on the map. They all tie to some important location, Giza, Stonehenge, and again, engineering marvels. The interesting one to me lately has been the Nazca Lines and, of course, Mount Taishan, which carries spiritual significance. And Haie Brazil? That stuff is legends. I rarely hear about that, and yet here they are somehow pointing at this. Of course, it's also close to potentially where this location was, which is considering it's supposed to be in Ireland. I don't know. Whether or not you believe the binary code is a message from beyond or, some fascinating human creation, I think one thing is extremely clear about this. It keeps us asking questions. And what do you think? What do you think out there? What is your theory? Do you think this stuff is real? Do you think that it is convenient that the binary message was conveniently decoded into English and somehow the aliens understand English? And if they understand English, why not just write the message in English to begin with? I don't know. I'm just asking questions. What do you think? I think that's going to be it. Billy, anything else to say? I think, I think that you got a lot of questions and a lot of energy considering you haven't done an episode in a long time. And welcome back and welcome to the first exciting episode of The Paranormal Corner. I am your host, Billy. Whoa, you're not the host. I'm the host. Thank you so much for joining us right here on the first exciting episode of The Paranormal Corner. Of course, part of Rick's Horror Network. No, we're not going to stop doing Rick's Horror Review Show. We're just going to do other stuff because we just find this shit fun. Damn it. If you find this shit fun, and you think somebody else out there on the old interweb will find this shit fun, then let them know to follow us on the old Instagram, on the TikToks, on the YouTubes. But the one location where they'll never find us, and you know this already, is on the Facebooks, because that's for the goddamn old, and we will never be there. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us on on the first exciting episode of The Paranormal Corner. Good night.